The failure to act with sufficient ambition to avert the climate catastrophe will be the greatest moral failure of our time.
Making changes takes courage, and if we don't change things, we won't have a future.
We need a president who respects science, who understands that the damage from climate change is already here.
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. Change is coming, whether you like it or not.
Zero Carbon
Easter. Hello and welcome to Zero Carbon Easter, Series 2, The Manifesto. I'm Ian Collins. This podcast drops, of course, on a weekly basis every Friday and delves deep into the green agenda. There are one or two other programmes out there that give it a go, but frankly, few get to the heart of these crucial issues like this one. In no small part, of course, due to this man. Our man front and centre is the environmentalist and entrepreneur Dale Vince. And I think we're going to start, Dale. You seem to have upset a whole raft of people because it was a question that came in from Val, who says, stop picking on farmers. Simple as that. She doesn't embroider on this anymore. Stop picking on farmers. What are you doing there?
Well, I have to say, Val, I'm not picking on farmers, but farming has to change in the same way that the energy industry has to change. We have to stop burning fossil fuels and move to renewable energy. The transport industry has to electrify, and the food industry has to change in respect of animals. We have to stop animal farming. It's as simple as that. I think Val's probably referring to a video that we shot last week for The Express, part of our campaign with them this week. The theme was nature. Chris Packham got involved. We're raising cash to buy a piece of the New Forest to give back to nature. And we shot a little video up on the hill where I built my first windmill as a piece of land there that 20 years ago we bought from a local farmer who was retiring, planted a load of trees, locked the gate and walked away, and it's just turned into a wilderness. So we made a little video about that and what it looks like when land goes back to nature. And that seemed to trigger a bit of a response from some farmers who wanted to tell me that I'm completely wrong and that upland grazing is natural and creates habitats and animal farming is regenerative and carbon neutral and, stuff like that.
So in terms of, just tell us about what it looked like when you went back.
Oh, it's like the land that time forgot. I mean, we just couldn't get into it because the shrubs and the thickets were so dense. It was like trying to get, I don't know, one of those jungle films, where you need a machete to hack your way through the undergrowth. And once inside, you could see the trees were doing really well. We used a drone actually this time round because we were once bitten, twice shy in terms of trying to get in there. So we sent a drone over the top, which is just a perfect way to film it. But it's just brilliant. It's 40-acre piece of land, and 20 acres was in a valley and 20 was on top. And we left the 20 on top to turn to grassland. It's really rugged stuff. And the 20 acres in the valley, we planted about 20,000 trees, fenced it off to keep the deer out to give it a head start, and walked away.
Wow. See, Val would say you could get 2,000 cows in there.
And it was cows, but before it was cows, it was ancient woodland.
True.
And it was clear felled. There's a big bite out of a real old woodland in the valley there. Big bite taken out for cattle farming, and we just gave it back. How
far would we go with that? If we closed every dairy production line, so there were no cows in fields and sheep and the like, then would your plan be that land just goes back to nature, or would that be that we work it in a different way? We grow vegetables.
But for me, this is the really exciting piece of the puzzle as we try to kind of green our lives up and live more sustainably. If we stop eating animals and only eat plants, and I realize that's a kind of bit of a stretch from where we are today, but I think it's coming. But the theory is, if we only eat plants, not animals, we free up 75% of the farmland in Britain. This is according to Oxford University, not me. And there's about 75% of Britain is farmland. So 75% of 75% is about 50% of our entire country that we can give back to nature, to wildlife, which I think is incredible. And over the years, of course, we've lost so much. We've lost all of our major mammals, 50-60% of all bird life in the last 50 years, wildflower meadows, insects, everything. I mean, we're turning Britain into a wildlife desert, and we're doing it for farming. And one of the things I pointed out in the video is that, we often think that it's urban sprawl, it's housing, it's roads and stuff like that. But that's just because that's where most of us live and that's what we see. And we think that's what we're doing to the country. But only 5% of Britain is taken over by the built environment. 75% is taken over by farmers.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's to reverse that. You're not going to do that overnight, Dale, with the best of will, even with Chris Packham by your side.
Well, the beauty of it is, from my perspective, it doesn't need to be managed. You just stop farming it, let nature come back, and it comes back really quickly. It doesn't mess about. Some of the feedback we got from people that are farmers, obviously they feel a bit threatened by that kind of language and that kind of approach. And I get that. I appreciate that. But some of the feedback is fairly common, is to say, look, these upland areas of Britain, they're really rough pieces of land. There's nothing else we can do with them except graze them. And, this makes me kind of, I don't know, it makes me laugh, because it's born of a mentality that says we have to do something with the land. And I don't accept that. I think that's where we're going wrong. We see a piece of land, we think we have to do something with it. We don't. And we've taken that land from nature when we do that. Gotcha. So we don't need to graze all of our uplands. We just need to let nature have it back.
It's interesting because looking at the United Nations report on this, humans have been waging a senseless and suicidal war on nature. They say the planet is broken. This is according to a report, Making Peace with Nature Through Climate Change, Biodiversity Loss and Pollution. So they're on this as well.
Yeah, it's intensive animal farming that's doing this. I mean, the Oxford report showed that 75% of farmland across the world is not required if we eat plants and not animals. And it is animal farming that's causing the destruction of the rainforest and all the other wildernesses and wild spaces around the world, which are being turned into farms to grow soya or other forms of plant protein to feed animals that are kept in sheds. There are 80 billion animals a year killed around the world for food. There's only 8 billion people, and we're not the problem, actually. It's our diets, the 80 billion intensively farmed animals. And this week there was a new group formed, River Action, and this is bringing the story back to Britain. I mean, what they're looking at is the impact on rivers of intensive animal farming. So ran by the River Wye, 60% of which is affected by pollution. There's something like 500 farms, chicken farms, and 44 million chickens. And, their effluent is finding its way into the river, and it's killing the River Wye.
Sure.
40% of all river pollution in Britain comes from intensive animal farming.
That's extraordinary. Yeah. Most people would never know that. I guess you wouldn't see that stat or that kind of information anywhere, right?
No, that's right. You buy your happy eggs in a supermarket and it doesn't tell you that, does it?
It's never mentioned.
It's not.
These eggs could be contributing to pollution because there's a lot of chicken shit in your local river.
Yeah, quite right. And, it's a real problem.
Say that with imagery to go alongside it.
Yeah, the imagery of animal products and food is so starkly different to the actuality. You think of milk and you'll see a picture of a happy cow in a field. That is not how milk is made.
Yeah, and sausages never look like that anywhere.
A good point. Yeah, good point.
This is interesting. Let's just pluck a story here out of the United States. Toby says, have you seen what's going on in Texas? With privatization, could our energy grid end up like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the Texas grid seems to have collapsed, triggered by the weather. But the stories are that it's underinvestment and poor management that's at the root of that. And our grid was privatized a very long time ago now. We're talking 25, 30 years. And we've endured some severe weather, and it's held up. And I've got to say, I think the answer is probably no. In theory, you'd have to say yes, if that's privatization that's caused that. But it is happening in America, and they do have a different approach to stuff in America than we do, obviously.
I thought what was interesting, actually, out of that story, I don't know if you saw this, Ted Cruz, the governor over there, who did, because Texas haven't been hit in this way for a long time with severe weather. And Ted Cruz, of course, has been a prominent Trump supporter. And when your state is on its knees and people have been cut off from power supplies, they can't cook their kids' food, they can't heat their homes. What does Ted Cruz do? Goes on a holiday to Mexico.
Did he?
He pissed off with his family to Mexico, to the sunshine.
But the thing worth mentioning is that Texas is a southern state, and of course they won't be used to this kind of weather. So it might be that the grid just wasn't built to withstand it. But this is an extreme event. It is a symptom of the climate crisis. The very, very cold weather that's happening in that southern state that does border with Mexico.
I think the Texans just thought it was kind of a Joe Biden bit of black magic going on.
Yeah,
White
brilliant.
magic, whatever you like. But I think they didn't know. Some of them had some great videos of Texans seeing snow for the first time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Which I get, if you've never seen it, it's probably a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, that's how exceptional that event is. You know, it's a southern state, a hot state on the border with Mexico, and
True.
and it's suffering some incredible freeze that's bringing down its grid.
Terrible. Here's a great story. And the reason I say it's a great story, I mean, the upshot of it isn't so great, but the reason I'm interested by this is about wood burning. And I think when a lot of people think of leading a more environmentally friendly life, and you consider the kind of good life sort of scenario, I'll grow my own veg, I'll live in a house, I'll have an Arga, I'll have a wood-burning stove. There is a sense that that's the right way to do things, a perception that that's the good way to live. But it's anything but, right?
Yeah, some interesting data out that shows that wood burning is now responsible for far more small molecules of pollution than road traffic. I think traffic is around about 13%, and wood burning was 30 to 40%. And only 8% of people burn wood, apparently. So it's not like a lot of people are doing it. And it's partly because of the lowering of emissions from other sources is why the percentage contribution of wood has gone up, because, you know, cars have got an awful lot cleaner. Even when they're not electric, they're a lot cleaner than they were 20, 30 years ago. Power stations, well, they're not just getting cleaner, they're being turned off, aren't they? We're about 50% renewable electricity on the grid now. So as we bear down on emissions from other sources, then this improbable, up until now, relatively small source of emissions comes to the fore, wood burning.
Again, that perception that it's the right thing to, I don't burn coal, I burn wood. I think probably a lot of people that think this is, you know, what the right thing to do. So what the heck do you burn?
Yeah, I mean, partly I would say that it depends on how you burn it. So open fires are very inefficient and polluting. And even if you have an enclosed fire, if you don't have a modern one, then it won't be ultra low emission. And then it depends on what you burn. If you don't burn seasoned wood, then you make an awful lot more pollution. So all of that mixture is in that statistic. You can definitely burn wood in a much better way than otherwise if you put a bit of thought into it. I was following that story, and I found myself reading from a New Zealand government website. They're giving advice to people there on how to burn wood properly. It's really interesting. How to light a fire, how pop outdoors, look at your chimney, make sure it's not smoking, get a proper stove, use dry wood. It's very interesting.
Indeed.
There's a lot you can do to do it better.
Now let's go back to rewilding, because we were talking about upsetting farmers and some folk. This came from a guy called Gareth Wynne Jones. He's a farmer, and he had this to say about your initiatives, Dale.
Just thought I'd show you some of the marginal land that we farm here in Wales. Yes, I do have a vested interest, and that vested interest is 370 years of my family being able to produce environmentally friendly food from these very, very rough and tough areas. So these are the things that we really need to be pushing to make sure that people understand that regenerative, environmentally sustainable food production is here on our doorstep. And yes, I know you and Bill Gates have got big investments in the vegan propaganda machine, which is good luck to you. But don't blame farmers for climate, because that is so wrong. And you know it's untrue. So come on, tell people the truth and let's go forward. And good luck to you in business, because I know for a fact that my family have got another 370 years here, because we are well supported by the great British public.
There it is, Dale.
Yes, it's a great little video, I have to say.
He's saying, what you talking about, Vince?
I know, it's a great little video, and I've watched it, and it makes me smile. I mean, firstly, he needs a muffler on his mic, obviously, to cut down the wind noise.
Recording issues over there.
I've ruined it a little bit. But, he stands there, he refers to the land as rough, and this is what I was saying earlier. This is what people say, uplands, there's just nothing else we can do with it. We have to graze on it. So that's that argument. He talks about it being wooded and teeming with wildlife. If you watch the video, it's neither of those things. It's not a great habitat because grazing destroys wildlife habitat, doesn't create it. And the idea that it's regenerative and environmentally friendly, I mean, I think it's convenient to attach those labels to it. It's still an exploitative industry. I mean, apart from the fact that it takes away wildlife habitat, of course, it's exploiting animals. But the problem is really for me at the end when he says, don't blame farmers for the climate crisis, because, it's not true. I mean, forget the Bill Gates thing. I think that's just amusing.
What was that all about?
Yeah, I don't know.
You and your mate, Bill? What's going on here?
He's my new mate in the, I'll be part of the vaccine conspiracies before I know it. I mean, all of the scientific evidence shows us it's the animal farming industry. It's second biggest cause of the climate crisis, not to mention deforestation and, habitat reduction and wildlife extinction. And it isn't the kind of farming that Gareth is doing. That's a fact. It's intensive animal agriculture that we talked about that's, polluting our rivers as well as driving the climate crisis and taking all of this land from nature. So I think Gareth perhaps misunderstands when we say we've got to stop intensive animal farming. We don't mean sheep roaming around on hills. I mean, I would like to see it stop because we can give that land back to nature, but that's not what's driving the climate crisis. On that, he and I can agree.
Yeah, indeed. Well, on that point, Dean on Twitter, and we were going to talk about this anyway, just a final point, and I think it feeds in nicely. Dean says, Dale, Vince and Bill Gates are working with George Soros to fund the global vegan myth. And now he's got Jeff Bezos on side as well. What's going on here? Who else? The Queen?
I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. It's funny. We teamed up with a group of companies this week who signed something called the Climate Pledge. It's an initiative kicked off by Jeff Bezos, and I think there's like 50 companies around the world now that have signed it. Some enormous companies, really, and we were invited to take part because of what we'd done with little or no money compared to these other guys. And we were happy enough for that because we figure that there's a chance to influence those people. And actually, we need them to change how they do business because, I maintain that we don't need oil companies to go out of business to solve this problem and fight the climate crisis. We need them to change their business. Same with car companies, and that's happening. Same with food companies, and that's happening. It's the same with all of these companies. We need them to wake up to their responsibility and do something about it. And, this group of 50 of some of the world's biggest companies in all kinds of sectors are doing, or saying they're doing at least, exactly that. They're pledging to go carbon neutral by 2040. So we thought, yeah, sure, why not? We'll join up and see if we can influence them.
Yeah, great. Couple to finish on, Dale. Chrissy says, love what you do, but why aren't you campaigning more on HS2?
Yeah.
We talked on the radio this week, HS2, and it's interesting that there is, right across different parties as well, a lot of objection to this. Seems to just be going ahead, despite huge campaigns in various areas, whether it's swampy in the ground or various villagers in different parts of the track having their say. I mean, huge problems against it, but it continues.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I did a Facebook Live event last night and somebody said, what are we going to do? How are we going to prevent the next HS2? Which I thought was a very pertinent kind of question because I realized that I feel that we've lost the argument or the battle over HS2, number one. That, as you say, is just happening despite the overwhelming objections of people that are in its path and people that object on environment grounds and on the grounds that there's 100 billion that we can spend on something slightly more useful. I think we've lost that battle, but I don't think there'll be a second one because I just don't think anybody's going to let it happen because of the experience of this first one. I mean, the ancient woodlands that have been destroyed for this stupid train line. I mean, it's just incredible at a time when we've got barely any left.
Final one from Jake, who emailed zerocarbonista@ecotricity.co.uk, says, I'm a huge Massive Attack fan. When can we see something from Forest Green Rovers creative director? Well, explain the question, Dale, for those who don't know.
Yeah. Our new creative director as of a few months ago is Rob Del Naja from Massive Attack, a.k.a. 3D. Yeah, he joined us probably back in the summer. He said he wanted to do a Bayerine. This is Hector Bayerine, who became an investor in the club. And he did that and became a creative director at the same time because we thought there was a great kind of overlap potentially between the world that Rob lives in. He's an artist and a musician, for those that don't know, and the world of football. And he's a football fan as well. and fan of forest green. So we thought, we can have some fun, do something actually quite different. So we've done nothing yet, but this week we've been talking because we've got ourselves a televised game coming up in about a month's time. And so we're looking to see what we can bring to the ground in the way of audio-visual equipment, because we won't have fans still at that time. We've got kind of quite a bit of room to play with, and one of the things that Massive Attack do, any fan of Massive Attack will know this, is visualize data at their concerts. So we're just looking to see what we can bring to the football experience in a similar kind of fashion. So it's a timely question, because if you'd asked me last week, I wouldn't have had much to say, but this week something's happening.
It's all happening. Dale, we will speak in a week's time. Thank you.
Nice one. Thanks, Ian.
That's it for this episode. Don't forget, of course, you can subscribe for free from your podcast provider. That way you get each new episode automatically. Do make sure you leave a review there as well. And if you want to get in touch, you can email zerocarbonista@ecotricity.co.uk. And please make sure you follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/DaleVince.
Zero Carbon
East of